We're outside the Independence Palace here in Saigon, Vietnam, and today we're doing a big tour of all the different museums through town. From the Independence Palace, a palace after getting independence from the French, to a museum apparently filled to the brim with propaganda. Hopefully this video will give you a good tour of some museums around Saigon.
I am made to be free.
We are just outside Independence Palace, or Reunification Palace. And the reason that it's important, or what significance it has, one, it was renamed the Independence Palace after getting independence from the French. But later it was renamed Reunification Palace because this is the site of the end of the Vietnam War in 1975. Some tanks went crashing through the front gates, and it sort of, I guess, signified the end of the war here. So it fits in with sort of a Vietnam War museum theme. Pretty neat looking building and a fairly significant one. So let's go inside.
With the site originally named Norodom Palace, this landmark was the home and seat of the president of South Vietnam during the war, and was in fact the location of the end of the war on April 30th, 1975. Covering 12 hectares and with an 80-meter wide front facade, these grounds have changed hands from the French to the Japanese to the French to the South Vietnamese and then finally to the North. After the palace was bombed in 1962 by two South Vietnamese pilots, who were actually agents of the North, then President Diem ordered a new palace to be built. This palace is the one seen today. Filled with living quarters, situation rooms, control rooms, kitchens, dining and hosting spaces, this building is rich with history and is an interesting stop during a tour of Ho Chi Minh City's museum circuit. Surrendered to the Communist North in 1975, the Independence Palace was renamed to the Reunification Hall by the Provisional Revolutionary Government, and now mostly hosts a museum open to the public.
So we're wrapping up at the Independence Palace, or the Reunification Palace right now. It's actually been a nice little walkthrough. A little bit slanted. You can see that the North definitely won over the South.
Generally not a lot of information though.
No,
Just a couple little facts around.
and it's a lot about the palace, right? So it's showing, oh, this was the president room, this was a receiving room, this is a dignitary room, whatever. And they have like where the bombs were dropped on the palace and presidential helicopter and stuff. But anyways, a nice little tour. There is another center we're going to that's going to talk about it as well. And then off to the next thing. We are leaving the exhibition now. It was really good. It's a really good museum. And just talking about sort of the history of the palace and the city from colonial rule sort of to the more modern era. But off we go to the War Remnants Museum. So we have now made our way to the War Remnants Museum, where, get this, they have stuff remaining from the war. It should be a pretty interesting sort of walk around. A bunch of stuff outside already, and then a bunch of displays inside.
Initially called the Exhibition House for U.S. and Public Crimes, and later changed to the Exhibition House for Crimes of War and Aggression, the current War Remnants Museum was renamed in 1995 following the normalization of diplomatic relations with the United States. This museum is a well-assembled collection of artifacts, all acquired during and after the American War, or as you likely know it, the Vietnam War. Showcasing American and South Vietnamese weapons, vehicles, bombs, and planes all captured during the war, this museum attempts to keep the horrors of war alive so as not to be forgotten. Effective and well presented, this museum is a multi-floor mecca of war, with details and dates of the events of the war told and cataloged on its walls. One with little or no previous understanding of the war will benefit from the broad strokes, attaining information on many of the larger attacks, offensives, or events of the war. While everything is presented clearly and cleanly, the message is not. Rife with bias, the descriptions and explanations on every wall of this museum indicate clearly that the North won, and that no Vietnamese soldier in the South was a patriot. Everyone who opposed the North was a puppet or a traitor, and that while the South Vietnamese puppet government tortured the North Vietnamese soldiers, the North could never have done the same. The horrors of war, the crimes committed by the South Vietnamese and the Americans are all shown as they should be. But one who is paying attention, even the slightest, will notice that half of the story is conveniently missing. If you have a hobby moderate to expert understanding of the Vietnam War, factually, this museum will drive you nuts with its omissions. True propaganda at its best, and very interesting to witness. A Vietnam must-see.
We have now finished up. It's gotten a lot busier here at the War Remnants Museum, probably much longer than most people would take. What did you think of the museum?
I thought it portrayed how like terrible the war was, but we've discussed this lots. It's definitely biased to the one side, but in general, like overall view of how bad it was.
Yeah, it's a good museum. As far as, well, that's not true. It's a good exhibit. As far as the display of certain historical items and photographs, a clear, unbiased view of history, it is not. It is very clear that history is written by the victors. In this case, you see it just in the way that certain things are presented. North Vietnamese soldiers are written as Vietnamese patriots or Vietnamese Liberation Army, and like South Vietnamese, who are equally as Vietnamese people, who are just fighting for the South, are pretenders or puppets or imposters or, yeah, that sort of thing. Is it a must check out? Oh, definitely. Super interesting.
Yeah, really interesting.
But like really tilted to one side. But I mean, that's exactly what it is. Essentially, it is North Vietnam who, once the Americans left, won the war. It's their take on the history of the war. Maybe the way a lot of North Vietnamese felt, and sort of some of the definite tragedies and effects after the war, like Agent Orange, of course, is
Horrible.
I mean, it's everybody knows it's bad. There's no outright lies as far as I can tell. They present what are real facts in a very biased, tilted, slanted manner. As far as the sites around Ho Chi Minh City, come check it out. It's good. So on our continuing tour of war museums here around Saigon, we are on a public bus. Headed out to the Cu Chi tunnels, but not the regular ones that all the tourist agencies go to. There's ones you can only get to essentially by like private taxi or by a public bus. And they are called the Ben Dzu tunnels. And they are actual tunnels. And whereas the big touristy ones are recreations for tourists, these ones aren't the authentic ones. So you can only get out there by bus or by private taxi, and so that's exactly what we're doing today. We know what you're thinking, but how could we go on such a fun, cool adventure on the public bus? Well, it's actually really easy. So first things first is we went to a park called September 23rd Park, really close to Ben Thanh Market, like right next to it. And from there you catch the number 13 bus for 7,000 dong to the very end of the line. It's about an hour and a half long, and we're on that bus right now. We just got off our bus number 13 here in Cu Chi, and next bus you want to look for is bus 79 to Ben Duoc is how it's written, but Ben Dzu is how it's pronounced. We're on the 79 on our way out, and it cost us 6,000 dong. So we let the ticket person sort of know where we're going. She didn't need to be told. There's only one place us tourists go on this bus. So we just got off our bus here at this intersection, this T intersection, by this gate. Our second bus was 6,000 dong. Our first bus was 7,000 dong. And so that makes it 13,000 dong for the entire trip out here. That's like 60 cents. And the buses were air conditioned, which was nice. It made it a very sort of a comfortable experience. So we're excited to check out these tunnels. Just down the road you walk in on. And it's 90,000 dong. 90,000 dong per person. So if the buses were 13, there and back is 26. 90,000 is 116,000 dong, which is like $6 for the entire day.
The Cu Chi tunnels were a system of tunnels 250 kilometers long in the district of Cu Chi north of Saigon. During the Vietnam War, these tunnels were very effectively used by the local and northern fighters against American and South Vietnamese forces during the war, and have rightfully earned their place in the history of warfare.
He was awarded as the American Killer Hero.
I'm a local guy. I live in here. I'm the Cu Chi people. My name is Quý.
Quý?
Yes. I will take you to see the tunnel. Now the first one, we go down here, we coming out over there. We see under the round water wells, where we get the water for drinking, for cooking under.
The dark. It wasn't as cramped as I thought it was gonna be, but it's pretty good. Sort of neat. There's a well under there and everything. How's that?
Rough on the legs, crouching down like that for so long.
We make look like the termite mouse because when the rainy season, the water couldn't get in down the tunnel. We have to use the rail to cover very well. Please waiting for me 1 minute. I open the door over here. How I show? I would like to show. Yes. Here. Use two hands. Holding two sides. And two arms up. And step more down, more step under the round. You can go the line.
Oh my god.
And cover yourself.
Whoa.
Okay, bye bye.
Oh my god.
See you tomorrow.
I'm a regular.
Oh, you get an applause.
Go down here, you can come back to Vancouver. Down step by step. Yes. Yes. Slowly. No war, don't hurry. No war. Now, somebody want to try? Now, you see that?
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute, please. The timber. If the roof like this, the big bomb come immediately.
This is a very cramped tunnel that we're in right now. We just got into like a war room. The headquarters room here.
Please, you see the model commander, some model soldier, right? He
ไม่เนี่ยก๊อฟเดินแบบนี้นี่นั่งแล้วเดินนั่งแล้วเดินก๊อฟต้องนั่งแล้วเดินนั่งแล้วเดิน
Oops, sorry.
โอ้โหพวกไปต่ำไม่ไปต่ำก้มที่ก้ม
If you're claustrophobic, there's no way you could be in these tunnels.
No, we're like totally crouched over. Oh god, it keeps going.
People stop and get held up.
Okay, so that one was a 30-meter long tunnel, and that would probably be the reason why this one's not so popular with Western
You're
tourists.
completely scrunched up, just like going along on your feet. Or not.
Like, I was on my hands and knees at one point.
Yeah.
3 entirely separate occasions, I got claustrophobic. Like claustrophobic and then fine, and then claustrophobic and then fine. And you had to like slide down at one point. Anyways, it was actually really a cool tunnel system, but I wouldn't want to have to fight from them. All the tunnels that we did before the last one, we thought like, whoa, what's the big deal with these tunnels? People talking about they're crawling on their hands and knees and all that. And we didn't get it, but like now we both, it's
Now we
like,
get it.
be ready, because I mean they even say like no people that get heart attacks. Oh, back into a tunnel. But yeah, even on the last tunnel, I mean they said if you have any sort of like heart issues or anything like that, because your blood pressure will shoot up and you're all claustrophobic and stressed, and we both get it. Apparently you don't get that. You don't get that at the Ho Chi tunnels, like westernized, Americanized ones. We are now leaving the Benzu tunnels here. That was really good.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
That was, we got a guide for it, and he like walks through it, and he was like hilarious. He was funny. He was cracking jokes, and like
He's a local.
and just a really good museum on it, showing you all the different traps and going through the tunnels. And some are short, and the one was long, and like I don't want to like exaggerate.
These are the walls.
Hopefully the video in this turns out so you can get sort of an idea. But like sections were like pitch black, and I ran directly into Stacey's butt once. And
I think I did that to the person in front of me too.
it was like, there was one section where you had to like change from being crouched to being with your legs in front, so you could slide down, going deeper down.
Oh, you slid on your butt?
Yeah, I just
Oh, I
slid
was on the
kinda
bottom of my
butt.
feet.
Oh, anyways, and there were sections where I was on my hands and knees, and then there's other tunnels that were you just like crouch down a little bit and you can get in. But apparently there are no tunnels like that in the other one. If you want a more authentic experience with like great guides and honestly cheaper to get out here, definitely come check out these ones. Totally worth it. Absolutely, it's great. And it's literally just about the tunnels and about the fighting that they did here and about the traps and everything. And they don't use the opportunity to like be like those capitalist baby-eating pigs. It's literally just like, yeah, we fought the Americans from here, and this is how we did it, and here's our holes, and here's that. It's like super interesting, it's super cool, but it is sort of no wonder these dudes that were doing the fighting here were like some friggin' hard soldiers, man. They're hard dudes, harder than me. That wraps up our tour of the Ho Chi Minh War Museums. So if you find yourself in Ho Chi Minh or in Saigon, make sure you check out these museums. They're all really interesting. Some are more factual than others, but definitely worth checking out if you're here in Saigon.